For more on this, our football correspondent Rob Dorset is back on set with me. Let's start with probably the biggest shock inclusion.
It's a huge surprise. I don't think you can overstate just how much of a shock it is that Ivan Toney has been included in Thomas Tuchel's squad for the World Cup. And that's no disrespect or no bearing on how well he's been playing. 42 goals in 49 matches in the Saudi Pro League this season is testimony to that. Other than Harry Kane, he scored more goals than any other English striker. So a few could argue that he deserves his place, maybe, but the real surprise is because he's featured so little for Thomas Tuchel since the head coach took charge 16 months ago. He's only been called up once. That was almost 12 months ago, last June, when he took part in a hot weather training camp in Barcelona. But of those two matches back then, he came on in the second game in the 88th minute when England were 3-1 down at home to Senegal and couldn't really make much of an impact. That's the only involvement he's had under Thomas Tuchel. So his inclusion is seismic. I don't think you can overstate what a surprise that is.
OK, so Toney in, Harry Maguire is not in. A lot of people would be surprised at that as well. What does that tell us?
Again, I think Harry Maguire's situation is slightly different. I think there's a lot of people in football that would have argued he deserves his place. 66 England camps, 4 consecutive major tournaments for his country, and he's been in brilliant form for Manchester United. Played in 12 of the 14 games under Michael Carrick and been outstanding in those games, only missing 2 because of suspension. So a real case for him to be included. But he was called up in March by Thomas Tuchel, who said that despite him playing very well, he was still his 5th choice centre-back as far as he was concerned. So maybe the writing was on the wall for Harry Maguire back then. But it's pretty clear he's upset about it. His messages on social media have made it very clear how desperate he was to play for his country again, and he thought he'd done enough. So it's a surprise for him, even if when you listen closely to what Tuchel said about him in the last few months, maybe it's not that big a surprise.
OK, so while we're on centre-backs, who do you expect to be included then if there's no Maguire?
Well, I fully expect Mark Gay, Ezri Konsa and Dan Burn to be in there. They've been 3 mainstays of the England defence under Thomas Tuchel. And we haven't had confirmation of any of those. We won't get confirmation until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, but I'd fully expect those to be involved. And Harry Maguire's omission, I think you have to say, makes it much more likely that John Stones will be included. And again, that's a huge surprise. We know that Thomas Tuchel is a big fan of John Stones. We know he loves his composure on the ball, his leadership qualities at the back. He's an outstanding footballer, but he hasn't played 90 minutes in the Premier League since August. Since right at the start of the season. Yes, he's played in a few FA Cup games and played the full game under Pep Guardiola, but Guardiola hasn't used him in the Premier League. He didn't even use him in the final of the League Cup either when they beat Arsenal. So he's not even played in every cup competition. So I don't think there's any doubting his ability, his pedigree, his experience with England. The doubt with John Stones has been the fact that he's played so little football and has had injury problems earlier on this season. But we know Thomas Tuchel is a big fan, and with Harry Maguire absent, I think he's got a really good chance, John Stones, now of being in that squad. There is discussion about Gerald Quansah as well, who's featured pretty heavily under Thomas Tuchel, been in a lot of squads without playing a lot of minutes. So we wait to hear whether those two are included.
Yeah. Levi Colwill?
We've been told this evening, I've had it from a pretty good source, that Levi Colwill is missing out. Even though he's been playing very well for Chelsea of late, he's missed the vast majority of the season because of injury. Does give him that option on the left side of defence, can play left-back as well. Versatility can be really important in the tournament, but it looks like he's missed out as well.
OK, before we get on to the number 10 position, which is obviously a big contentious one, isn't it? And some very interesting news we are hearing about that. Just going back to the striker, if Toney's in, does that mean Ollie Watkins is not in the squad?
I haven't had confirmation of this, but noises that I'm hearing suggest that Ollie Watkins is in as well. And that is being
3
reported,
strikers.
And that is being reported by other outlets this evening. That would be, again, a huge surprise. Thomas Tuchel hasn't named 3 strikers in any squad that he's had since he took the job 16 months ago. In fact, the conversation I had with him probably 6 months ago was, might you only take 1 striker, Harry Kane, to the World Cup? And he thought about it and said, that probably doesn't give us the balance we want. I think I want to take 2. Looks like he's taking 3 in Ollie Watkins, Ivan Toney and, of course, captain Harry Kane. And I don't think there's many that could argue that Ollie Watkins doesn't deserve his chance. He scored 10 goals in his last 12 games for Aston Villa. He's just helped them to the Europa League title. And, of course, he scored that wonder goal for England at the last major tournament in the semi-final to take England to the Euros final in Berlin. So he's got a brilliant pedigree with England as well. The doubts were his dip in form midway through the season. That's been put to bed now. So I'm not surprised at all if Ollie Watkins does get the nod. The surprise is that Ivan Toney's there alongside him and Harry Kane.
Probably the most hotly debated position is the number 10 position, isn't it? Given all the options that Tuchel has got, what are we hearing about Phil Foden and Cole Palmer?
Well, let's tell you what I expect to happen first and what we're pretty confident in, and that is that Jude Bellingham and Morgan Rogers will go as England's number 10s. We didn't know what was going to happen to Phil Foden and Cole Palmer in particular, because I don't think there's any doubt that they are incredibly talented footballers. They would probably walk into the squad of 99% of the teams at this World Cup. But other places are reporting that neither of them are going to be included. And that wouldn't come as a huge surprise to me, because England are blessed at number 10, and Thomas Tuchel has said all the way along that he simply can't take all of the options he has at number 10, and he is quite prepared to leave some big names at home. It would be huge if Phil Foden and Cole Palmer were left at home. But it's pretty clear that England have a lot of other attacking options as well, besides them.
I'm just going to put us in a scenario here, right? England are struggling to score goals, to create chances in the World Cup first 2 or 3 games. Surely one of the first things that people are going to use as a stick to beat Thomas Tuchel with is the fact that Foden and Palmer are not there.
And it's a big risk from the England head coach. There's no shadow of a doubt about that. What I would say is England still have a lot of attacking options irrespective of that. If we think up front they're going to have Harry Kane, Ollie Watkins and Ivan Toney, there's you guys to stick it in the back of the net. Fully expect Marcus Rashford and Anthony Gordon to be the choices at left wing. Fully expect Bukayo Saka and probably Ebere Eze and probably Noni Madueke to be in this squad. So you add all those together, they can't all get on the pitch together, so you've still got some big attacking options on the bench to bring on. But you're right, if England don't start the tournament well, if they're not scoring goals, then Thomas Tuchel will be criticised. He's hung his neck out there to be attacked, hasn't he, by making these big calls. And one of the biggest calls we still wait to hear is around Trent Alexander-Arnold. Overlooked massively and regularly by Thomas Tuchel, to the point where there's been, I think, if not a campaign in the media, certainly a level of repeated question about why are you not picking one of the best footballers of our generation? And Tuchel has always said he doesn't quite fit the profile. And what he means by that is he doesn't think he defends well enough, and he wants a right-back who can defend. Reece James is England's first-choice right-back. He'll be on the plane, without a shadow of a doubt. But who's the next option? With Ben White injured, a lot of people will be clamouring for Trent Alexander-Arnold. That's a big headline waiting to happen. If he's not in the squad, that will be a really big story, in the same way that Foden and Palmer not being in the squad is a big story. So we await that one with interest.
Well, look, if you can pick Ivan Toney, you never know. He pretty much spring a surprise and put Trent on the plane as well.
And do you know what? I would just say at this point, there's been no talk about Trent Alexander-Arnold this evening. And I just wonder whether that is because he's going to get the nod. We've heard a lot of people put their hands up and say, I'm not in the squad, or sources have told us and other news outlets that a certain player is not in the squad. Nobody has reported that Trent Alexander-Arnold is not in this squad. So I just wonder whether, like Ivan Toney, Thomas Tuchel's ready to spring a bit of a surprise there.